my first Boulder City State of the City address. So let's go ahead and get right into the evening. First, here to sing the national welcome to a recent recipient of the Boulder City Rotary Essay Award and Boulder City High School student, Stella Roy.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets and the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. So next, we have our invocation. I'd like to welcome Pastor David Graham of Grace Community Church to give the invocation.
Thank you, Taylor. I love that drone footage of the town. Do you have to, do they have to stand for the prayer? I guess that's good, huh? If you're all standing, fine, that's okay. I can't even see you out there, these lights, I feel funny. All right, shall we pray and ask the Lord's blessing on our time tonight? Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here tonight to thank you and to praise you for the many and awesome blessings in our lives. Together we humbly ask for your guidance and wisdom, fully aware of our limitations and consistently walking in obedience to your ways. Forgive us, for we know that you love us completely and always have. Bless this town, Boulder City. We ask that you bless our mayor, city manager, city council, legal team, and all the department heads and support staff. None is more important than another, for we strive to be unified citizens, to respect our small town way of life, and to pray and work to make this the best little city in Nevada, or anywhere else for that matter. Thank you, Father. Hear our prayers, O God. In the name above every other name we pray. May you be glorified in our lives. Amen. You may be seated, I think.
Thank you so much. And now let's go ahead and move on to the main event. He was first elected to the City Council in 2017, and in 2019, he became our mayor. So please put your hands together for Mayor Kiernan McManus.
Well, we're something that's been significant, not just for Boulder City, of course, but everywhere in this country. I do want to thank Stella Roy for the national anthem. She's a gem here in Boulder City. What outstanding voice. And Pastor David Graham for the invocation for our city. And of course, all of you residents come out tonight. We have our city here. I see Matt Fox, Sherry Jorgensen, Claudia Bridges, and James Adams. Again, we appreciate everyone coming. Our honored guests, we do have, I believe Senator Joe Hardy is here this evening. And haven't seen Commissioner Gibson. Ah, there he is. Commissioner James Gibson. And North Las Vegas Mayor John Lee. John and I have had a few lunches together over the past couple of years, and best of luck on your race here coming up. Also, our city staff. I certainly want to welcome Taylor Tedder, who, as he said, has been here about 6 months as our city manager. Brittany Walker, our city attorney, has been, I think it's a little over a year now. And of course, Tammy McKay is our city clerk now. She's been deputy city clerk for many years. Her experience is very valuable. Plus her staff, you can thank for doing such a great job on the centerpieces and getting the room ready tonight. We also have many of our department heads here. I know that we have our fire chief and police chiefs are both here, Will Gray and Tim Shea. I see Michael Mays, Community Development Director, and Keegan Littrell, our Public Works Director. We have Aaron Johnson and Assistant Chief Cheshire. Jim Keene, I see over there, our city engineer. I've probably missed someone. I apologize if I have. Brock Armentrout is running our technical end of things this evening. And I know that we've had a loop running on the system here, showing different things here in Boulder City. We have a great communications staff with Lisa LaPlante, our communications manager. Holly is our videographer. And also Carly has helped significantly with putting this presentation together and many of the graphics that we've seen for our council meetings and that sort of thing. And of course, the Boulder Creek staff here, they've done a great job. I'm sure everyone's been enjoying the appetizers and all of that. Again, we do a lot with a little here in Boulder City, and they certainly live up to that standard. And you may notice the centerpieces here. Tina Pickens in the city clerk's office has done some great imaginative stuff with the artificial turf. And we'll get to that later in the speech as well. To start out, clearly we have to acknowledge what the pandemic has done over the past couple of years. The burdens that it has placed on all of us have been significant, and the hope is, and I do believe that we are on our way out of this now, the hope is that we continue to improve. Again, just last week, the mask mandate finally came off. We are seeing numbers improve significantly here. But when I look back to the remarks that I had made in January of 2020, it was very positive. Things were off to a very good start. I didn't know what it was. And then just within a few weeks of having State of the City address, we've certainly come through a lot since that time. Last year or so, what we have seen in Boulder City for positive test results. You can see as we get around the holidays, that's when we saw the numbers go up most significantly. We saw that again with the Omicron variant this year. But on the plus side, we're also seeing those numbers come down very quickly. And I'm sure that that had a lot to do with us finally being able to get away from the masks. I hope that people have been vaccinated, all of that. But we have our fire department people. You know, they immediately moved into doing the testing for this city on a scale that was not being seen anywhere else here in Southern Nevada. And they kept that going, even the numbers that I just showed for the Omicron. There was even consideration, because the numbers have been decreasing so much, that we would discontinue doing testing. And I know the discussion that I had was, you know, we need to wait for the holidays and see what happens. So they went from just doing a few tests a week before the holidays to doing, I believe, 700 or 800 tests during the holidays. They have stepped up every time there's been a need here in Boulder City for either the testing or the vaccinations. You know, we actually got a little ahead of things on vaccinations here in Boulder City, and kind of a little tap down for doing that. But the reason we were able to do that was because of the work that our firefighters had done. Chief Gray, the work that he did in organizing this. And I know that the firefighters usually get, you know, they've got the bigger trucks and all of that, so they usually get the attention. But our police also had a great deal to do with keeping us safe here in Boulder City. You know, they initially went out and worked with businesses on how we could best handle the mandates as they came out. They were looking to help people understand what we needed to do in a way that still allowed whatever we could for functioning of those businesses. So both our police and fire, again, I thank them. They have helped so much get us through this. And it wasn't just them, of course. You know, we had a number of different parts of our community step up on this. Our volunteers and nonprofit organizations, we know how critical they are to Boulder City, how much they've done in the past. When I look at the work that emergency aid did, sometimes at great risk to the people who volunteer there, you know, they've always helped people who are in need. But during the pandemic, they stepped up in a way that was just outstanding. The city had received funding that we were able to put out into the community, but we really didn't have a method to do that. And emergency aid quickly adapted their procedures to being able to help people with rent, with mortgage, with utilities, with food, child care, all of those things. They quickly adapted to being able to do that. And as soon as practical, other organizations like Lend a Hand and the Senior Center, they also immediately took charge of what they had. The Senior Center went from serving probably over 100 meals a day to delivering over 100 meals a day. That kept seniors safe at home. The people who also stood up as just volunteers by bringing in supplies, donating them to the city. We even had an effort of having people, I think deserves the credit, vaccines were first being delivered to our senior citizens. You may all recall that as the vaccines came out, they went to the older people first because they were the ones that were most impacted. The Senior Center helped greatly with that operation in cooperation with our fire department. And then our parents and schools. You know, children may not have been affected health-wise as severely as others. But the time that they've lost out of the classrooms, away from their classmates, even just recess, has really been significant. With the change that occurred or had to occur, you know, parents got to be IT professionals, kitchen tables got to be the desktops for students, teachers had to reorganize everything they had been doing in order to be able to deliver some type of education to the students. The schools also continue to provide free lunches and to residents. I think that was a real plus to put some normalcy into these children's routine. My concern about the time that has been lost, though, for these students is it will probably take years for them to get back to a place that they normally would have been. And for those students who have gotten out of school, or for us to be going forward, you know, there's too much of a divide here in Nevada, I believe, between our local schools and our local governments. But I do think that over the next year, I would like to see if there is something as a city that we can do to reach out. You know, maybe it's tutoring classes during the summer. I don't know what the solutions are, but certainly we need to try and do something to help our kids get caught up again. And again, I've mentioned already about city staff and the work that they've done. You know, we have people from all departments going and taking phone calls to schedule appointments for vaccinations. We had city employees taking donations that were being provided by residents, organizing those and making those available to people who needed them, putting in the extra time, doing jobs that were certainly not in their job description. So I really appreciate all the efforts our city staff has done. It helped to keep us safe and it helped people survive through this pandemic. So, as we go forward, you know, we have now vaccines readily available. We have treatments that are being, so with all of that, you know, we are seeing the numbers go down significantly here in Boulder City and everywhere, actually. That's a very good thing. But one thing we've seen with COVID is we don't know what that next variant is going to be or what may happen. The scientists, many of them are saying, you know what, it does look like we're on a positive trajectory. I believe that is probably the case, and I certainly want to get past this because it has not been good for any of us. So, on a little bit of a more positive note, you know, as far as our financial situation here in Boulder City, one, there's been an unprecedented amount of funding that has come out from the federal government. That has not only come directly to the city government, but also to many of our businesses. And we're waiting. One of the programs that the federal government instituted early on through President Trump was the Paycheck Protection Plan. And what we've done here is to show by industry how much money has come into Boulder City through that program. Those numbers have been significant. And we may just skip through this a little bit quicker. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Can we go back? Well, the cool graphic's not going to happen, I'm sorry. But what the cool graphic was going to show you is that overall through this program, over $28 million came into Boulder City businesses. excuse me, that's a significant amount of money. That helped these businesses weather the shutdowns, the reduced business, people staying at home, employees who were getting sick and unable to work. That was a very significant thing for Boulder City, and I believe the reason why we see so many of the businesses we've had for so many years still here. Well, okay. It'll get there eventually. Trust me, it comes up to over 28 million. You know, other programs that had come in to help with all of this, of course, you know, probably everyone here received the direct stimulus checks. Those amounted to about as much as $1,400 with the various checks that came out. There was increased and extended unemployment benefits for people who had been laid off from their jobs that you know, the companies may have closed or closed down for a period of time. We had the CARES Act. Again, that extended some of those programs that came out under President Biden. We're now with the American Rescue Plan. Boulder City is scheduled to receive $21 million to the city through the American Rescue Plan. We've already received half of that money. It's been a little bit of a challenge to understand what we can spend that on, but it does look like we will have some flexibility. But we will also be able to use that money for things like water and wastewater infrastructure that are so important to having our city function. We will be doing some outreach to the community very shortly, getting their thoughts on how this money might best be spent in accordance with the guidelines, because we don't want to have to pay the federal government back in a couple of years for all of that. There's also been the state and local recovery funds. Those are going to help the city, one, be able to replace any of the tax revenue that we've lost, but also we may be able to look at that money too to reward some of our employees or the employees for all the efforts that they've put into this. For our city finances, we are in good shape. There's no question about that. The lease revenues that we get primarily from the solar projects out in El Dorado Valley have just been a huge success for this city. You can see that over time they've increased significantly. And fortunately, right when the pandemic was at its worst, the townsite project that recently started up delivered a $4 million one-time payment to the city. That helped us cover any loss of revenues that we may have had in that past year. But as we go forward with these solar projects, we are going to have a reality check coming up in Boulder City. And that is that the energy zone, most of the land that is in that has been used for projects. So we will still continue to get a large amount of revenue from those. The leases are written in such a way that we will get increases each year due to inflation calculations. But as far as new projects and as far as seeing this just continue on up forever, you know, we are going to level out at some point, and we need to start preparing for that within our budget. But I think that we can easily do that. I think that if we're wise with what we've always done here in Boulder City, we can still see these leases keep our property taxes low, help us do things here in Boulder City for the good of the community. And one thing to keep in mind is, as you look at the land we have, if we look south of here and we think, well, we still have all this open land out there, most of what you see in the green areas on this map, red area is but that area to the south in the green is wildlife conservation area. And that's not possible for us to have development down there. And I believe that's a very good thing. We love having our open space here. But as people look in El Dorado Valley and they think, well, yeah, we have a lot of solar panels down there, but we still have all this other land, that land is going to stay that way. And again, I think that's a very good idea. We all enjoy our open space and recreation here in Boulder City. The assessed property values for the city, even during the pandemic, had still continued to increase. Our property tax revenue did take a bit of a dip, but then came back up. And, you know, having been in office now for over 4 years, I always look at that property tax and try and figure out, well, if the value goes up, how can the tax go down? So anyone out there, if you can do in 500 words or less how property tax works in Nevada, let me know. We'll get that out to the community so everybody else will understand it. Because it's amazing the way it does work here. And you can see where Boulder City is on the left there compared to all the other cities in southern Nevada. This is what those land leases help us do, is keep that. We have here that are on fixed incomes. The consolidated tax, that is a conglomeration of sales tax, cigarette tax, and if you'll look at last year, there was a slight drop. But even this past full year, excuse me, the year before, even this past full year of the pandemic, it increased. And I know from talking with some of the business owners here in town, they've told me last year was their best year ever. That's amazing. What I get out of that is these programs where the federal government has kept the spigot open. We'll see if it's been too long, but our utilities. If you've driven around town, you've noticed they've been working on a lot of things here. Along Adams Boulevard, we have all new poles going in. It was recently completed what was called the 69 kV loop down through Hemingway. These are all things that are going to increase the efficiency and safety of our electrical system. It is costing a lot of money, but these are projects that really have been needed for many, many years, and those are moving forward now. There's also work being done on replacing plastic pipe, which was probably not one of the better ideas from the 1970s. You know, the stuff that was put in. We've been able to reduce our utility rates. We had a 3% reduction, and we also were able to repeal the annual automatic reductions of 2.5%, and yet still continue to do these other projects. The American Rescue Plan money that I mentioned earlier is going to be a big help within our utility fund to make sure that we can keep some of these projects going. And we have a new utilities director. He's hiding over in the corner there. Joseph Stubitz. You know, Joseph is from Boulder City, grew up here in Boulder City, and also worked most recently for the Bureau of Reclamation, or WAPA, or one of those acronyms out there. But all of that experience that he has accumulated during that career is going to benefit our utilities here significantly in Boulder City. And of course, we're a municipal utility. It's run for the benefit of our residents. So welcome aboard, Joseph, and we look forward to your ideas. Housing permits over the past several years. There have been 211 of those permits pulled. We are currently in the process of getting appraisals on the land around the golf course here. That could result in another 177 homes. I know that I've heard people say, well, you know, we can do up to 120 houses a year here in Boulder City. Well, we've never done that, and there's good reason. The reason is we don't really want to see growth at the maximum. I think this has been a very healthy growth for us. If we assume that somewhere around 400 homes are going to have been built over the last 5 years, you know, that's at least another 1,000 residents in a town of 16,000. So when I hear people say, oh, nobody in Boulder City wants to grow, or we're a dying community, these numbers belie that. These numbers show that we have been growing here. I think we need to be most careful of not getting ahead of ourselves. The projects that we've had, again, you look at the numbers there, that's manageable, I believe, for our city to adjust to. If we start growing too quickly, we will find that other things are either going to have to not be done, or all of a sudden things start to cost more for taxes, utility rates, those types of things. And not to offend Commissioner Gibson, I know he's from Henderson, but the Henderson annexation, I do not see this as being desirable. I can also tell you that the plan for this, and again, it is a very large plan called the Southern Nevada Lands Bill. You know, this piece out there, which is around 8,000 acres, had been on these maps for years. This bill has been in Congress, in discussions for several years now. And it was always shown as a conservation area. So it had a blue line around it. Now there were other areas that had red lines around them, and that was called the disposal area. And the disposal area meant just that the federal government would turn that land over, usually to the cities, but sometimes directly over to private ownership. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. Some of that money goes to finance parks. It has financed some of the trails down in Hemingway and along the river mountains. So there are benefits to that. The plan also set aside areas in the Red Rock area, down south of here for off-road vehicles. There were some good things in this plan. But this piece of land, every time I saw it there, it's like, why is this here? What is this? And was always assured, oh, don't worry, it's conservation area. That's why it's got the blue line around it and not the red line. Well, then just a few months ago, that blue line suddenly became red. And Henderson announced that they had annexed that land. The green strip on the right-hand side of that is land that's been in private ownership. You know, we're familiar with that. You know, the company that put the sign up on the side of the mountain, the one that's tearing down the mountain, the ammunition plant that's out there. You know, we're familiar with the type of development that's occurred in that green strip. That's privately owned land, and it will most likely get developed. As a matter of fact, this week, the City of Henderson Planning Commission approved a new truck stop out there just below Railroad Pass. We are going to see development out there on that private land. You know, the actions that we've taken, what I have pressed for here in Boulder City, is to say we do not want that larger area to be in the disposal boundary within the Southern Nevada Lands Bill. I put forth resolutions for the City Council to stay as open space and recreation area. But we know what development is like here in Nevada. That's been a major factor in Nevada for the last 40 or 50 years. You know, I've heard people say, well, the mayor should have, and when you look at the way things are done here in Nevada as far as these annexation laws go, neighboring communities have very little to say about what their neighbors do. So we are working hard. That land there at the entrance to Sloan Canyon, I believe, is very sensitive land for wildlife and plant life that are native to this area. And certainly a lot of people enjoy that for off-roading and hiking and all of those things that we love about the desert. So we will see. I know I will be working very hard to see that that area stays as open space. And not to comment on, any of our age here tonight or the color of our hair, but we know here in Boulder City, we tend to be a little bit older. And I always tell people, don't hate us because we're old, because, hey, we made it, we got this far. But then people say, well, we don't have any young people here. Well, that's not really true. We do have young families here, but it is a difficult place to move to. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how young families even find housing anymore with the prices we're seeing. But we do have families here for certain. They are part of our community, a valuable part of our community. But, Boulder City has become a place where people can come and retire to. I was talking to a gentleman earlier this evening who just happened to time his move here for the beginning of the pandemic. But we know we get people who come to this city, fall in love with it, and it may even be a few years later they move here. That also brings a lot of stability to this community. We have people who have made their livings, have done their things in life, and now want a little bit slower lifestyle. That doesn't mean that, we're all out doing our walker races or anything like that every Saturday. There are good things that we do here, and we have a very active community. They make up this community with their efforts, their life experience, their knowledge. All of that is very beneficial to our community. And when we do look at our school enrollment over the past 5 years, it stays actually pretty stable. I'm not sure what may have resulted in that drop at the middle school, because you see the elementary schools and the high school tend to be fairly even, but we do see a drop off at the middle school. But overall, over the past several years, those numbers have stayed pretty much the same. Again, that's healthy to have that here, and I'm not sure when people say, well, we need more, how as a city do we make that happen? It's a hard thing to do, especially with the cost of housing. And we've seen how our housing has increased here in Boulder City, and yet the numbers don't seem to reflect much of a movement there. So I'm very optimistic that our schools continue to win sports championships. We continue to have students get full ride scholarships to very prestigious universities. The high school and the middle school are both 5-star rated schools in Clark County. We have teachers here that are the children of teachers that I had when I was in school. They're dedicated to this community. And I think that makes us a very strong draw for people who are able to move here. They want a place like Boulder City to raise their children. Businesses. I know that, it seems like every time we have any type of discussion, it's like, well, what's the city doing for businesses? I kept thinking, we're the government. We're not business. But we've done a lot for business, and we continue to do a lot for business here in Boulder City. They've had a couple of tough years with the pandemic. There's no question about that. Although the city did not have the funds, the funds that came with the Paycheck Protection Program, of the money that we did receive, we put forward about $300,000 of that in grants for our businesses here. That's part of the way that government was able to step up and help out to get people through that rough spot. Unfortunately, we did see some businesses fail here. The 70s and some of the recessions that occurred. I've seen what it's like for people who have put everything into their business to try and survive those rough times. Unfortunately, here in Boulder City, we did have a small number of businesses that closed. But we've also had new businesses that have opened here. Even during a pandemic, people were willing to take that chance on Boulder City and open up a new business. And of course, we welcome the businesses that do come here to serve our community. We want businesses that fit well into Boulder City. I know from talking with the new city manager, and I believe I've seen Rafi, our economic development coordinator, here tonight. There he is. You know, we get a lot of people coming to talk to Boulder City. And some of them are like, no. That doesn't mean that we don't want growth or that we're small-minded or anything like that. It's that the proposal you have brought just doesn't fit well into this community. But we have been able to attract some new businesses here. And one of the things that will be considered, probably considered, in the election this year is to ask our residents, do you want to put land available for the second grocery store that we all want here in Boulder City, out there by Veterans Parkway and Boulder Parkway. It's very difficult to attract businesses when we don't have a lot of frontage on major roads and things like that. So I think that's something worthwhile for us to look at. We will be talking about that in the near future. As I mentioned, there were some businesses that closed and some that opened. These are the number of business licenses over the past 5 years here in Boulder City. You know, it's kind of like most other things in Boulder City. It really hasn't changed all that much. And I think that, again, shows the strength of our community. You know, Mayor Lee is here this evening from North Las Vegas. You know, their graph, I'm sure, looks much more tilted upward than ours does. But this is what we've made a decision to do here in Boulder City. And some of the things that are happening down in the Las Vegas Valley now, the diversification, somebody who was born and raised here in the economy. Well, I can tell you, people like businesses. And I think we're starting to see a great deal of success in that. And I believe that is going to be a big benefit for our residents in Boulder City too. You know, we send our kids off to prestigious schools all over the country, and what happens? They get these great educations and they don't come back because there really aren't jobs that fit the careers that they're looking for. I think that's going to start to change now. I'm very hopeful that we're going to see diversification happen. We still love our tourism industry, that's still critical for us, but diversifying our economy is something that has always been talked about, I believe is now finally being done. And of course, let's not forget the employees that have worked at all these businesses during the pandemic. You know, we call them frontline workers, we call them essential workers. Yes, please. But these are the folks who are really putting it on the line for us, who kept those stores open, who made products available for us, even though you couldn't find toilet paper sometimes. But I still want to find those 3 people that still have their living room full of toilet paper. Again, they're the ones who showed up. They're the ones who kept us functioning. And they had to deal with the mandates. They had to deal with the people who said, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do this. You can't tell me what to do. When all they were trying to do was follow the guidelines and keep people safe. And businesses, I believe, are really a sum of their employees. And during this time, I think we've seen those employees step up and do an outstanding job. They certainly did great work here in Boulder City. If not, I don't think we would be here tonight without masks on, with all the work that they've done. So again, a round of applause for all of them. Projects. Well, we have a lot of them, and we talk about them, and we're actually doing a lot of them right now. One project that I'm certainly looking forward to is the possibility of having our wastewater facility upgraded, reusing that water for irrigation, and taking less water out of Lake Mead. You know, we have tried for many years to use that wastewater as dust control for projects, for the solar energy projects. And as I mentioned earlier, they're slowing down a little bit as far as the number of projects. This is a very opportune time, I think, to have a project like this go forward so that we can be wiser with our water. And we absolutely need to be wiser with our water. You know, we see Lake Mead every day. We know what it looks like, and they're predicting that it's going to drop another 30 feet. It's serious, folks. Another project that I think that we can work forward to obtaining is our police and fire. You know, I don't know, Chief Gray, if we're going to be able to swing that second fire station, but I certainly think that we can look to adding training possibilities for our police and fire. Chief Shea has worked hard to attract candidates here from other departments who are already trained, who might be looking for an opportunity like Boulder City to continue their careers. So that's something that, as far as projects go, is important to our community. Of course, we remain the safest community in the state of Nevada. We have one of the higher percentages of police officers to residents. Those are all very good things for us. We are safe here, we feel safe, we feel that we can go out for a walk when we would like to. It's a big part of the reason we live here in Boulder City. We see continued work being done on our streets. Keegan Littrell, our Public Works Director, is also serving on the Technical Advisory Committee, I believe it is, for the Regional Transportation Committee. You know, the Boulder City Parkway has been completed. The next large project that is already in design will be Industrial Road. Yep. Yeah, if you've driven down Industrial Road, you know that, yeah, it's kind of up and down. The Museum Road, or what's being called the Museum Road, is going to be just to the north of the businesses on Boulder City Parkway. That's being done for two reasons. It will give more access to those businesses, but it's also going to fit in very well with the plan that the state has for expanding the Railroad Museum. And, you know, very happy to hear a short time ago, the bonds for the design of the Railroad Museum expansion have now been sold. The design work is being funded. I'm sure it's going to take a couple of more years, but that is going to be a huge draw here in Boulder City. It already is. They offer tens of thousands of rides to visitors here every year, almost completely with a volunteer staff. Those folks that come here get to enjoy Boulder City at our best. And that, I believe, is the type of tourist attraction that we do want and need here in Boulder City. So the city's going to facilitate that with that road back there. I think that that will make a big difference in what we see the success of the businesses there on Boulder City Parkway. I mentioned earlier the possible sale of land for another grocery store. That's been a tough sell. I believe that Rafi has said, you know, he's talked to, I don't know if it was 40 or 70 different companies, developers, all of that. It is difficult getting grocery stores to open up in places now, but we are going to work on that. Renewable energy for our city. I know there's, you know, a little bit of a conversation about what we can do. I'm hoping Mr. Stubitz is going to help us with that. We need to look at renewable energy direct for our city, not selling it out. I know that puts us in a class called producer class, but how can we do things that are generally referred to as community solar? Plus, with the new solar project that just opened up, Townsite Solar, part of that agreement is that we'll be able to purchase some of that power. And that may come in handy. Mr. Stubitz had told me recently that, you know, because of the water situation on the Colorado, some of our power came from Glen Canyon Dam. Well, that may not happen. So we need to look for other avenues for our energy, and we sure talk to a lot of people that know how to do that. Water conservation, that again, going back to the condition of the Colorado River, potentially upgrading our wastewater facility. Those are all those types of things that we can do to help with the conditions out there. You know, going forward, I do think the pandemic is still going to be a drag on us personally, on our economy for a little bit longer. We can help with that. You know, we never know what will be decided, the next booster shot, the next vaccine, the next treatment, but we can help ourselves with following the science on those types of things. With our new staff, the new city manager, city attorney, Tammy McKay with her experience, but in a new position, I'm very hopeful for the future of Boulder City. I think that we are developing plans now. We've already started to implement some of those plans. We're seeing some very positive things happen around our city. That, I believe, is going to continue. And we're going to be looking to all of you to give us that input. Again, we have over $21 million that will be coming in these federal funds, and we want to be able to use that in ways that are going to benefit the city for years to come. I do want to go back, though, just for a moment to the centerpieces. Again, Tina had done such a great job on putting that together, and this was probably a couple months ago. It was like, well, you know, what are things going to look like? And I thought, you know, I've been accused of being the one who's going to turn Boulder City brown. And I thought, you know, what better way than to show how we can maintain some of our greenery here in Boulder City, even if it is artificial turf. But no, I don't have plans to turn Boulder City brown, but we are going to have to be smarter about what we do. And again, we've looked for input from the community, how we can do that with some of our landscape here in Boulder City and still preserve the beauty of our parks. So it always gets down to, what does Boulder City mean to you? What's important about it? What needs to change about Boulder City? I know that many of us have been here for many years, and we do understand the work that the people who were here originally put into this community, how they had the foresight to pass our conservative growth laws. I believe we owe those people a great deal of respect, and we need to understand we wouldn't be where we are without the efforts that they had for this. And it certainly is hard to beat the success that we've had, but I would also remind people that, you know, it is possible to lose that if we lose sight of how we got to where we are today. Reminded of the old Jack and the Beanstalk fable where, you know, someone says, "Hey Sonny, sell me your cow there, I'll give you these 3 magic beans." And at the top of that beanstalk was the giant that was going to eat us up. We don't want that. We love having Las Vegas next to Boulder City. It's a great benefit for our community, but we need to make sure that we preserve our identity out here in Boulder City. We've seen how the strength of this community has gotten us through this. The theme of tonight was that we are damn resilient, and we are damn resilient here in Boulder City. And we are going to remain the best city by a damn sight. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Somebody had mentioned, you know, possible Q&A. Anybody got a couple of burning questions that they would like to ask this evening? That's probably a wise choice. The hors d'oeuvres are probably getting low. So again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our staff for all the work they've done. Thank you all for attending tonight. Boulder City is Boulder. We're going to do well. Thank you all.